Now, arguably even more competitive than the compact crossover segment that I reviewed last time with the Chevy Equinox is the mid-size three-row crossover. There are over 15 competitors from the likes of Toyota, Honda, Kia, Dodge, and the list goes on. So perhaps you've outgrown your compact crossover and you need 3 rows and more cargo volume, but you don't want to settle for a minivan. Well, does the 2022 Chevy Traverse meet the needs of you and your family? That's what we're going to find out in today's video. Now, the Chevy Traverse was initially released back in 2008. Something else really big happened that year, but I can't remember exactly what. But anyways, it was a 2009 model year and the vehicle's done pretty well for the brand. Chevy has moved on average a little over 100,000 units of this vehicle every single year. Now, they released a second generation of the Traverse back in 2018, and here in 2022, they freshly restyled that second generation model, which is the vehicle you're seeing on the screen today. Now, the vehicle shares the same underpinnings as the GMC Acadia, the Buick Enclave, and the Cadillac XT6. So to start this video off, let's discuss with exactly what Chevy changed with this 2022 facelift. 2022 brings a nice facelift to the front and rear of the vehicle. Starting with the front end, you have a redesigned front fascia that features the new grille design that gives it a more stately appearance. The front end now matches closer to that of other updated Chevy models like that of the 2022 Equinox. This year also brings a restyled headlamp configuration with new LED headlights located closer to the bottom where you would typically expect side marker lights, and the daytime running lights are actually across the top, reminiscent of the Chevy Blazer. No major changes on the side of the vehicle except for heated power folding exterior mirrors standard on this RS trim, Premier, and High Country models, and several different wheel designs. The roof rails have also been slightly modified from the pre-facelifted version. Coming to the back, the LED taillights have also been redesigned and look very nice at night. The rear fascia is also updated with 2 different colors for the chrome trim between the taillights. 2022 also brings additional standard safety tech that Chevy calls Chevy Safety Assist and wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Pricing for the new Traverse starts at $33,700 for the LS trim, which is similar to its competition, but goes all the way up to $51,200 for the High Country trim, which is among the higher end of some of its competition. This is not the most affordable 3-row SUV, but it comes with features that we will discuss that maybe justify the price. This particular RS trim sits right below the Premier trim and has a starting price of $44,200. My particular tester is slightly more equipped with all-wheel drive, a dual sunroof, trailering equipment, and the cherry red tint coat. So after destination charges, this particular vehicle is $50,040. All right, now if you are familiar with my car reviews where I awkwardly come into the frame and pretend like I'm talking to you, and people around me seem to have no care in the world that I'm talking to a camera, you'll know that I focus on 5 main categories. That is practicality, safety and security, interior and exterior features and quality. We go over some of the performance and handling or the ride quality for a mid-size crossover. And then I finish it off with some fun and hidden features specific to this vehicle. Now, before we get started, this is the RS trim level, but a lot of the features I discussed today are not particular to this trim, but the Chevy Traverse in general. So if you are in the market for a Chevy Traverse, I do recommend you watch the entire video because you may learn something new. And I do want to give a huge shout out to Chevy for giving me the opportunity to review this vehicle and present it to you all today. If you are in the market for a new Chevy, I do recommend going to their website and building one of your own. I will put their information down in the description below, but I'm pretty sure you know where to find them. All right, let's kick things off with practicality, which is probably one of the main reasons to buy a 3-row mid-size crossover. Let's kick it off with the powertrain. And as of 2022, there's really only one option you can get, and that is a 3.6-liter naturally aspirated V6 that's mated to a 9-speed automatic transmission. Now, power output is rated at 310 horsepower and 266 pound-feet of torque. Now, in case you're wondering, that's actually pretty high for vehicles in this segment. The only ones that are much higher than this is the likes of the V8 Hemis that you get in the Jeep Grand Cherokees and the Dodge Durangos. But other than that, this is one of the most powerful. It's more powerful than the Toyota Highlander, the Kia Telluride, and the Nissan Pathfinders. Now, fuel economy for this all-wheel drive version is 17 in the city, 25 in the highway for a combined 20, but you can get this option with just front-wheel drive, and then you'll improve your fuel economy by 1 mpg. Now, if your vehicle is equipped with the trailering equipment package like this vehicle is, you can tow up to 5,000 pounds. All right, next let's talk about the cargo area. Now, if you're lazy like me, you're gonna wanna upgrade to this RS trim because then you get the power liftgate as standard. Now, if you happen to be even lazier than that, you're gonna wanna go for the higher trim levels because then you get the hands-free liftgate where you just swipe your foot and the door will automatically open. Now, let's talk about the cargo area because it really is a class leader in terms of size. Behind this third row, you get 23 cubic feet of space, which is plenty to put some snacks back here, some roller bags, take it for a road trip, perfect amount of space. But if you happen to need more space than that, you can actually lift up this floor, which is really easy to do, and it stays in place. That's a really nice feature. Most of the time you have the floor open and then it actually falls back on top of you as you're trying to grab stuff. This one stays open, and that way you can access all your soda cans or whatever you have back here. And from what I've been told, there's an additional 3.2 cubic feet of space behind this floor, and you do have a spare tire there as well. Now, if you happen to need more space than that, these third row seats are very easy to fold. All you do is pull on this handle and you push the seat down and you're done. And you get up to 57.8 cubic feet of space if you fold down that third row. Now, if you happen to need more space than that, after you fold down this third row, you can also fold down the second row, and that will get you up to 98.2 cubic feet of space, which is really a class leader in this segment. So if you need the largest cargo volume, you gotta look at the 2022 Chevy Traverse. Okay, now let's talk about the third row seats. Now, my kudos to Chevy for making it very, very easy to access and exit this third row. You simply pull on a handle on the second row seat and the entire unit moves forward. And what's nice about that is the fact that if you have a car seat in that seat, it will actually move forward. So you don't have to remove that car seat just to get occupants in this third row. Now, one complaint I do have is the fact that that's only on the passenger side. The driver's side does not have that same functionality, and I don't really get why, since they could have easily just used the same unit but put it on the driver's side. Maybe someone in the comments can let me know why that is. Now, my particular tester is equipped with the captain's chair, so as a worst case scenario, you can actually just slide through in the middle. Now, let's talk about the legroom back here, and it's not fantastic, but it's actually larger than a lot of its competitors. Chevy says there's 33.5 inches behind the second row, and that's a class leader. Toyota Highlander, Kia Telluride, and the Jeep Grand Cherokee L, all of them have less legroom than this. Some of them actually have less than 30 inches. The only thing that comes close is the Dodge Durango, which has the exact same at 33.5. Now, in terms of functionality back here, it's pretty basic. I mean, you've got some cup holders, you've got air vents on the ceiling, and you do have 2 USB ports, so one on each side. That's really nice, so all your occupants can still plug in their devices. But in terms of sitting back here, my knees are just about an inch away from me sitting behind myself. So it's not bad by any means, but it's not fantastic. But if you want something more than that, you're gonna wanna opt for like a Suburban or a Tahoe, because those all have larger legroom in the back. One complaint I do have, and this is something I've mentioned on other vehicles as well, is the fact that you have hard touch plastic over here where you're resting your elbow. I just wish they would have added some sort of injection molded plastic or some soft touch material so when you lay your elbow here, it's not gonna feel sore after a couple hours. Now, I can't say I would be comfortable back here for long periods of time, but teenagers and kids should not have a problem. Got plenty of headroom and decent legroom for a teenager or a child. Okay, now getting into the second row, let's briefly talk about the ground clearance, which is 7.5 inches. So no extreme off-roading in this vehicle, but if you do happen to hit some trails, you should be fine. Now, sitting back here, the seats are very comfortable. I would say they're more comfortable than the third row. They have better lumbar support. They hug you a little bit better, but those third rows aren't meant to be used on a daily basis. Now, I do want to mention that this vehicle has the captain's chair, so there's only seating for 7, but if you do need seating for 8, the regular Traverse does come with 8 seats. These captain's chairs are nice though because they tilt, they can slide forwards, backwards, really a lot of functionality. And I gotta say, me sitting behind myself back there and sitting over here, there's plenty of legroom to sit comfortably, but this does have less legroom in the second row than some of the other competitors. This one has 38.4 inches versus some of the other ones hitting up to 40 inches of space. So what the Traverse wins in terms of cargo room and third row legroom, it loses a little bit in second row room, but I gotta say, it's not gonna be noticeable. There's still plenty of space to sit here just fine, be very comfortable, and you even have a little slide down armrest as well on both the driver and passenger side. Now, in terms of functionality back here, you do have air vents up at the top, and you actually have your own climate control system. So this has 3-zone climate control, 2 for the front, 1 for the back, and this controls the third row as well. So you can set the temperature, the different fan speeds. You do have 2 USB ports. So you've already got 2 in the back, 2 in the second row, and you have a household power outlet, really nice to have for charging devices. And then you also have the cup holders. There's actually 2 different ones because there's one in the lower part and then one at the top on the door itself. So that's a great feature. Just be careful when you're shutting the door that you don't have an open drink because then it's gonna spill all over you. But other than that, a second row is a great place to sit. Okay, now let's talk about the practicality of the front row seats. Before we climb in, I briefly wanna discuss the fact that this vehicle does come with 8-way power adjustable front seats with lumbar support. And my particular tester also has 6-way power adjustable with lumbar support passenger seat. Now, if you do wanna get powered passenger seat, you gotta get at least the LT leather trim or above. Now, climbing inside, a very comfortable cabin to sit in, very comfortable seats, just like the second row. Now, I want to talk about the functionality of this 8-inch touchscreen. Mine comes with the 8-inch, but the standard Traverse comes with a 7-inch, so you will have to keep that in mind if you want the larger screen size. Now, 8-inch does seem a little bit small for the year 2022 and for a vehicle of this size, but it is pretty comparable to that of the Honda Pilot or the Toyota Highlander. The only vehicles that really have the larger screen sizes are the newer entrants like the Kia Telluride and the Jeep Grand Cherokee L. Now, I do really think that this is one of the best, most intuitive software systems in the industry. Definitely at this price point in this segment. It's very easy to use, very intuitive. You've got lots of different apps and functionality. It's super quick and crisp. And you do have wireless and wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So all in all, if you're looking for a very practical interior cabin, the Chevy Traverse is a great option.
Now let's briefly talk storage bins. You have the space underneath the trunk floor, small compartments in the third row, several door cubbies in the second row, map pockets behind the front row seats, a compartment underneath the center console in the second row, more door pockets for the first row, and a large center arm console. You also have a glove compartment as is standard on most cars, and a really cool secret storage compartment behind the center display. This is a feature Chevy has integrated over the last few years, and I absolutely love it because you can easily hide valuables here and absolutely no one would know. Well, unless they've seen this video or every other video talking about it. In terms of reliability, the Traverse received a great rating from US News at 82 out of 100. That's a little lower than the Kia Telluride and the Jeep Grand Cherokee, but higher than the Honda Pilot and the Toyota Highlander. Overall though, reliability is very similar between the competition. Chevy does cover this vehicle with a 3-year, 36,000 mile limited warranty and a 5-year, 60,000 mile powertrain warranty.
Now, overall, I would rate practicality an 8 out of 10, which is higher than what I would rate most of its competition. The only thing really higher on my scale has to do with minivans and pickup trucks. Now, the reason I rate it so highly is because of the fact that this does come with a pretty powerful engine that still has really decent gas mileage. You've got some of the best in-class cargo volume, a very intuitive infotainment screen that has very, very quick responses and lots of functionality, and a pretty good interior cabin. Now, that being said, I do wish they improved a couple things, like maybe a slightly larger infotainment screen, maybe 10 inches instead of the 8. And I do wish they had an all-digital instrument cluster, or at least something bigger than this 4.2 inch that's in this RS trim. That being said, they do offer an 8-inch instrument cluster screen on the higher trim levels, but I feel like that should be standard even on the base trim level, given some of the competition have an all-digital display. Okay, now let's talk about safety and security. And as of 2022, Chevy added some previously optioned for safety features as standard on all Traverse models. So regardless of which trim level you get, you're sure to keep your family safe.
All Chevy Traverse models come equipped with Chevy Safety Assist, which includes automatic emergency braking, front pedestrian braking, lane keep assist with lane departure warning, forward collision alert, automatic high beams, and following distance indicator. You also get front, side, head curtain, and frontal knee airbags. The RS trim also gets you some additional safety features like adaptive cruise control, enhanced automatic emergency braking, 360-degree camera, rear pedestrian alert, lane change alert with side blind zone alert, rear cross traffic alert, and rear park assist. As mentioned in the Equinox review, the only safety feature this vehicle does not have is the lane centering assist, which will actually keep you in between the lane on the highway. In case you are wondering, the Traverse received an overall good rating from IIHS, and the NHTSA gave the 2021 Traverse 5 stars, so I expect the 2022 would fare similar.
Now, I would rate safety and security an 8 out of 10. The only thing really notching this vehicle down is similar to the Equinox, where it does not come with adaptive cruise control as standard on the base trim level, where some of the other competition does. Additionally, this vehicle does not come with any type of self-driving functionality like Chevy Super Cruise. But other than that, this vehicle comes with pretty much every other safety feature that you need to keep yourself safe driving down the road. Next up, let's discuss the interior and exterior features and quality, and we'll kick it off with the exterior. Now, I do really like what Chevy did with this 2022 facelift. I think it looks a little bit more modern, a little bit more stately, kind of upscale, luxurious, whatever words you choose to define it. I do think it made an improvement from the pre-facelift version. Now, I don't particularly think this is the best looking mid-size crossover, but looks are subjective, and I do think it is a good looking vehicle overall. I like what they did here with these LED headlights and running lights. I don't know if I absolutely love the fact that the headlights are actually located down here in the lower part of the bumper. I've seen some other vehicles do this as well. I don't know how I feel about that, but I do think that Chevy did a good job overall with the design of the front, the way this black chrome kind of bends in over here, and then you have a second segment over here at the bottom. And obviously this one is the RS trim with the black Chevy bow tie. Going over to the side, I really like this body line running from front to back. They didn't really change too much on the side with this facelift, but nonetheless, it didn't really need an updating. And moving to the back, I really like the LED taillights and the dual exhausts at the bottom. Just gives it a really nice sporty appearance to the vehicle. And overall, it's a decent looking crossover. Now, I've already mentioned what they updated with the 2022 facelift, so now let's briefly discuss what's included in the RS trim level of this particular tester.
The Rally Sport trim adds a few styling cues on the inside and outside which make the vehicle look sportier. Now, it is strictly an appearance and amenity package and does not alter the way this vehicle drives or accelerates. The RS includes several blacked out trim pieces like the Chevy bow tie emblems, the grille, the fog lamp bezels, and the window trim. It also includes these 20-inch dark aluminum wheels which have a great design to them and match the cherry red tint coat. Moving to the back, the RS trim also blacks out the badging and adds a dark chrome accent on the trim piece between the taillights. Regardless of what trim you select, the Traverse comes with an updated, sculpted appearance with LED headlights and several different wheel options. Overall, I think the vehicle looks its price.
Now, overall, I would rate the exterior a 6 out of 10. I don't think it's the absolute best looking midsize crossover, and I don't think I'd find myself trying to catch it as it was driving by me. But that being said, I think it's a good looking vehicle. There's nothing really super controversial or odd looking about it. The only maybe controversial thing is the headlight placement down here, but other than that, it's a very good looking vehicle, and especially in this cherry red tint coat. Now, I do like that Chevy made a pretty relatively large size vehicle look pretty small with the way it designed the proportions. Okay, so prior to going inside the vehicle, let me briefly talk about the Chevy Key, which this is just your standard key for any Chevy model. If you saw my Equinox review, you'll know this is the exact same key. You've got your lock, unlock, remote start, you've got your power lift gate back there, and then your panic button. And then to lock and unlock the vehicle, you push this button to lock it, and then you push it again to unlock it. Moving inside, the vehicle carries over its somewhat conservative styling. There were no particular updates with the styling of the interior for the 2022 facelift, aside from just some additional features. The RS brings a few features like this jet black interior with the spice red accents throughout the cabin, giving it a nice sporty appearance. The RS also gets you the 10-speaker upgraded sound system with Chevy's Infotainment 3 Plus system that adds navigation and this 8-inch touchscreen to the center display. Starting with the door panel, one gripe I have is that the top surface is hard touch plastic. I feel that at this price point, you should have a nice soft touch material here so that you can rest your elbow while driving. Moving downward, the materials get a little bit better with this leather upholstery and the automatic window switches. And here down at the bottom, you have storage spaces and a cup holder. Moving towards the seats, you can get them in leather or cloth and up to 3 different interior color options, and you can also get them heated and ventilated. Overall, they are very comfortable and nice to sit in for long road trips. Inside the door, you'll find your standard buttons to control your headlights and instrument cluster lighting. The steering wheel is nicely leather wrapped on this RS trim and has a nice touch and feels good in the hands.
Buttons include your cruise control on the left along with your heated steering wheel functions, and buttons on the right are to control the menus in the instrument cluster.
Speaking of instrument cluster, on this RS trim, you'll find the upgraded 4.2-inch display, which honestly feels a little small for a vehicle of this size. I can't even imagine the 3.5-inch display that comes on the standard LS and LT cloth trims. Luckily, you can upgrade for the 8-inch screen if you get the Premier and High Country trim levels. 8 inches right around middle of the pack. You can certainly get a larger screen on the newer competitors like the Grand Cherokee L or the Hyundai Palisade, but 8 inches is roughly in line with the older competitors. I do wish the instrument cluster was 8 inches as standard, or maybe even as an option on the lower trim levels, because the 3.5 and the 4.2 inch on the lower trim levels is just too small in the year 2022. Moving towards the center display, I like how they integrated this into the dashboard, which is done a little bit better than some of the competition in my opinion, but there's nothing really particularly groundbreaking or different about it. It's intuitive and what you would expect looking at the outside of the vehicle. As mentioned before, the Chevy MyLink system is one of the best in the industry. It's very easy to use, very snappy. You have Bluetooth audio, wireless and wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, along with plenty of other nice features. Moving downwards from the display, you'll have an open storage bin with wireless charging, a couple USB ports, and a 12-volt power outlet. And moving back from there, you'll find your 2 cup holders and your shifter with the RS trim badging. Moving behind that, you'll find your electronic parking brake and your buttons to control your automatic start-stop and your lane departure warning. You also have a knob to control the different drive modes from all-wheel drive to towing to off-roading, but you will not find any sport or eco modes in this vehicle. The center arm console is nicely leather wrapped with a soft touch material and offers quite a bit of space when you open it. Moving above the driver's seat, you'll find your controls for the sunroof and the sunshade. My tester has this upgraded dual sunroof feature, which is a nice touch from Chevy. I will say I don't like that the front sunshade shoots back when you open it, and the fact that the rear sunshade is not a one-touch to open or close. You actually have to hold down the button. I also wish they just created one larger glass panel rather than separating it into 2 different pieces, but at least the second row still has some sort of sunroof even though it doesn't open. Moving towards the second and third row, there's not too much more to discuss. You have the same hard touch plastic on the door panel at the top, along with soft touch materials below. You have the same nice perforated leather seats with the red piping. You've got plenty of cup holders and lots of storage underneath the rear climate control. You also have a couple USB ports in the second row and then a couple more in the third row. Now overall, I would rate the interior similar to the exterior at 6 out of 10. There's nothing particular controversial or bad about it, but with that, there's nothing really groundbreaking either. I will say I do like some of the things they did with the interior styling, specifically in this RS trim with some of this piping over here. You've got these seats with a really cool design to them, almost looking kind of bespoke and custom. I like that side of things. I do think they should have improved some things, like this hard touch plastic has got to go for this $50,000 vehicle. Additionally, the fact that the instrument cluster is 4.2 inches, you know, that's not in the time and place for 2022 when vehicles are doing all digital displays. That's something that they need to improve. But that being said, I like how everything is very well laid out, easy to use. If you have an idea of where a button's going to be located, chances are that's where the button's located. And I like the fact that they have both touchscreen and actual physical buttons for a lot of the climate control and other functionality as well. So all in all, if you're looking for a pretty functional, good-looking interior that's not the best in class, but definitely not the worst, the Chevy Traverse is a great option for you to choose. Okay, so now for the part of the car review that everybody is just dying to find out about, and that is the performance and handling. Now, we're going to obviously touch on ride quality, comfort, interior cabin noise, etc. But before we get started, I wanted to briefly talk about the blind spots. They are pretty large back there, but luckily this particular trim comes with blind spot monitoring. So if you can swing it, I'd recommend you get it because the blind spots are pretty large. So setting off in this 2022 Traverse, the first thing I want to talk about before we hit the road is how maneuverable this vehicle is. Specifically, given the fact that this is a large 3-row midsize crossover, this is actually more maneuverable, oddly enough, than the 2022 Equinox that I reviewed last month, and that was a compact crossover. Okay, setting off here on an actual road in the 2022 Traverse, and as a heads up, I apologize if I call this vehicle an Equinox at any point throughout this review. I just reviewed a 2022 Equinox, and so the two vehicles are kind of merging in my head. But anyways, setting off here in the 2022 Traverse, first thing I want to talk about is the size. If you guys saw my review on the Equinox, it's very similar on the interior, except this vehicle is larger. You can definitely tell the size because the passenger area is much further away and the general dashboard area is larger than that in the Equinox. Once this light turns green, I'll show you the acceleration, but again, this is a 3.6 liter naturally aspirated V6. And it's actually pretty quick. You get 0 to 60 in about 6.9 seconds, which is very, very formidable for a vehicle of this size. It's got 310 horsepower, 266 pound-feet of torque, and this engine is a great size for this vehicle. I do have a couple complaints with the transmission. I feel like sometimes it doesn't downshift quick enough in order to get you the best amount of power when you're accelerating, especially when, if I was going uphill, for example, I mash on the pedal, it's a little slow to respond and downshift. And, you know, I don't expect it to from a midsize crossover, but I kind of feel like the 6-speed automatic in the Equinox was a little bit better than the one in this vehicle, which is a 9-speed. Typically, I like the more modern 9-10-speed automatics, but in this application, it's a little bit sluggish. Now, in terms of maneuverability, it maneuvers how you would expect a large 3-row crossover. You definitely get some body roll, as you can tell on the screen, I'm sure. It's not super planted to the road, but at the same time, this is not a sporty crossover. This is a pretty large 3-row SUV, and so it's going to handle as such. The Equinox handled a little bit better because it was a little bit more compact, a little lower to the ground. This vehicle, you can definitely feel the weight, but it's nothing super obnoxious or maybe dangerous. It just handles fine. It's what you would expect. Now let's talk about ride quality, comfort, and interior cabin noise. And I gotta say, this is something that I applaud Chevy because I had the same compliments when I reviewed the 2022 Equinox. Let's do a quick... Yeah, this has plenty of power. Anyways, coming back to the ride quality and cabin noise, this vehicle rides better than you would expect for essentially an entry-level brand. We just went over that little bump over there and you could barely feel it inside of the cabin. Not sure how well the camera caught it, but it rides more like a luxury vehicle than, you know, just a regular brand like a Toyota or a Chevy or a Ford. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that the underpinnings of this vehicle is the same for some of the more higher end vehicles like the Buick Enclave, the GMC Acadia, and even the Cadillac XT6. So in this somewhat base version, it actually handles really, really soft on the road. It carries itself very, very well. I gotta say, that's gotta be one of the best selling points or one of the biggest advantages of this Traverse over some of its competition, is it does ride a lot better than you would expect. Next thing I wanted to discuss is the interior cabin noise. I touched on that a little bit earlier, but it is very, very quiet inside the cabin. Again, very similar to what I would expect from a luxury vehicle than an entry-level brand. We just drove over some train tracks and it was very, very quiet. I could easily have a conversation with a passenger or even the individuals in the third row without feeling like I have to scream, because they've really insulated the cabin a lot better than, like I said, the Chevys of 10, 15 years ago. Now, as we're about to get onto the freeway, I want to talk about seating position and, you know, the general comfort for long road trips. I really love the seats inside of this Traverse. They're very comfortable, and one complaint I had with the Equinox was that the headrest was very, very hard. I compared it to plywood, and this headrest is different. It's not the exact same one they're using in the Equinox, and this one is plenty soft. It's exactly what I wanted. So thank you, Chevy, for designing a good headrest, unlike the one that I had complaints with in the Equinox. And then in terms of seating position, this one has a little bit more lower thigh support than what I had in the Equinox as well, which makes sense because it's a bigger SUV compared to the other one. And just in general, this is very similar to the Equinox, but larger. A lot of the things I enjoyed about that vehicle, I enjoy in this one. The only complaint, again, is this hard touch plastic here if you rest your elbow, which was a little bit better in the Equinox. But overall, for long road trips, this is a fantastic car. I would definitely take it a cross-country trip because there's plenty of space for snacks and it's very comfortable. One complaint I do have is you don't have drive modes in this vehicle either. Similar to the same issue I had with the Equinox, you do have this rotary knob down here, but it only controls your all-wheel drive settings, some off-road settings, some towing. It's not like a sport or an eco mode or anything like that. And I just don't see why they don't create something like that, because it would make merging on the freeway a little bit better, and then it would improve your gas mileage on long road trips. Now, in terms of safety tech, this vehicle, like I said earlier, has a ton of different safety features. You do have adaptive cruise control, and you can actually change how close or far away you are from the vehicle in front of you. All of that is using just these left-hand controls on the steering wheel. And then you do have your lane keep assist button located down here near the drive modes. Now, the lane keep assist does try to push you back into the lane to keep you centered, but it's nothing like a highway assist where it will actually stay in the middle of the lane and kind of steer you along traffic. It doesn't do anything like that, but at least this does push you back into the road so you can stay a little bit more centered if you happen to be veering off or if you're distracted. Now, this also has a lot of the pre-collision warnings, so if you are coming up really close to the vehicle in front of you and it's braking, this will actually light up on the screen as if it's a head-up display, letting you know that, hey, you should pay attention to the road. Now, another thing I want to point out in regards to adaptive cruise control is it will actually bring you to a complete stop. I'm glad it does that, because some other competitors bring you down to like 5 or 10 miles per hour. And that's just annoying, because then you don't really know if the vehicle is actually going to stop if there's an emergency situation. Whereas this vehicle will actually bring you to a complete stop, but it will not re-accelerate the vehicle. And I wish it did. I don't really get why it doesn't. You actually have to hit the gas pedal in order for it to reset itself and get you up to speed. And that engine really moves this vehicle very well. Overall, I would rate the performance and handling a 7 out of 10. I gotta say, this is a little bit better than the Equinox I tested because that vehicle was slightly underpowered. With this one being a naturally aspirated 3.6 liter, you have that lower end power that you kind of want to have when you're driving in day-to-day traffic. Now, my rating for this vehicle is probably a little bit higher than some of its other competitors just because this engine is a little bit more powerful than some of the competition. Now, obviously, if I was competing against a Hemi V8 in the Dodge Durango, that'd be a different story. But in terms of the other V6 competition out there, I think this is probably the best engine to go for, and definitely no issues there with passing power or accelerating on the freeway. But the ride quality is what really takes this to the next level. So my kudos to Chevy for doing that. And if you're looking for a very, very good vehicle in terms of ride quality, comfort, interior cabin noise, and pretty decent performance and handling, you gotta check out the Chevy Traverse because you won't be disappointed. All right, now let's talk about some of the fun and hidden features specific to this Traverse.
First, let's talk about the rear view camera mirror. This is a really cool feature and the first time I've ever used it, but with the flip of a switch, you can turn the rear view mirror into a camera display for you to be able to see out of the rear without being blocked by several rows of seats. Next, let's talk about the 360-degree camera, which I think Chevy does a fantastic job in terms of the different angles and the screen quality. Overall, a really good and intuitive screen. Next, let's talk about the hidden spot behind this center screen. So with a push of a button, you raise a hidden compartment where you could put a wallet or some keys and hide it out of sight. Next feature I want to talk about is the wireless and wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. This vehicle also comes with a wireless charger located underneath the center display, which helps charge the batteries while you're running the wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. This vehicle also comes with 10 cup holders, 2 in the center arm console, 2 more in the doors, 4 in the rear doors if you use the storage compartments in the bottom, and then 2 more in the third row, although you could probably fit even more with some of the storage compartments. This vehicle also comes with 6 USBs. There's 2 in every single row, and you have a household power outlet located in the second row and a 12-volt power outlet in the trunk. Another quirky feature is that the headlights are located in the bottom of the bumper.
So that is everything you need to know about the 2022 Chevy Traverse. So here's my recommendation. If you're looking for the most spacious 3-row midsize crossover that has a really good-looking upscale appearance and comes packed with great safety tech even on the base trim level, then you gotta look at the 2022 Chevy Traverse. Now, I do have some constructive criticism, specifically with the interior screen sizes. I wish the infotainment screen was a little bit bigger, and I definitely think it needs a larger instrument cluster display. I also have complaints with some of the interior material quality, like the hard touch plastics on the doors. But some of those things are remedied by the fact that the interior is very easy to use and very intuitive. I also love the gray technology, and the MyLink system is fantastic. I also give props to Chevy for the ride quality and comfort of this vehicle, which definitely punches above its weight. Overall, the Traverse is a very formidable competitor to some of the newer entrants like the Kia Telluride and the Grand Cherokee L. Is it better than the competition or worse? I'll leave that up to you. But if you do pick the Traverse, I know you're going to be happy. It looks great, it drives great, and it comes packed with great features. A huge thank you for checking out today's video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the weekly car videos. Also, check me out on all of the social media at Schwazy_. I'll put the links down in the description below. And as always, everybody, I hope you stay Schwazy, stay healthy, have a wonderful day.